We have many special guests today outside of Dugan. We have Salon from the Lemon Lime at Tufts. He came all the way from Massachusetts to give it up for Salon. And we have a special friend of mine from my Center for Complex Systems lab back in Florida. His name is Michael Oshkoff, who's going to be a physics PhD. Here we got you from 1517 fund, came from Canada. Here. Tyler Goldstein right in the front. You should give him a thumbs up and a high five as well. And then last but not least, we have our main speaker, who will go right after Dugan, Scott Aronson, from Colorado. All right, now Dugan, give a quick intro and take it away.
Sure, yeah. My background is, I'm Dugan Hammock. My background is in mathematics, geometry, and I do art. And I work for the Wolfram Institute as a research coordinator. And I'm here to talk to you today about unstructured geometry time. Basically, okay, so I've been doing a lot of work in hypershapes and visualizing them. So I'm going to start with some shapes that we do know about, namely the cube. So the cube is like an extruded, you take a square and you extrude it vertically, you can get a cube out of that. That makes sense. And then something they might not know, if you slice it starting from the vertex first projection, in between at the equator you get a nice little hexagon out. So that's fun. But what I didn't know before I did this was that you get the same hexagon if you slice the dodecahedron at a particular angle. So if you slice it this way, you can bisect the dodecahedron so that you get two hexagons coming out of the center. So these are exercises for, the goal of this was to take three-dimensional slices out of hypercubes or hyperdimensional shapes. So I developed this in Mathematica, and so this is a three-dimensional slices of a hypercube. Let's see, oh, there we go. So, nope, I'm getting conflicting things here, so sorry. There we go. So a cube is just an extrusion of a hypercube is an extrusion of a cube. And these are the slices parallel to that extrusion. But at a different angle, you can change the angle of the slice you're taking, and then you can see how, oh, it's a tetrahedron at one corner, and it goes to like some sort of truncated thing, and then goes back. So you can play with the angles, and then interesting that one particular angle, there's a sort of a octahedron as the equatorial slice before it goes to a tetrahedron at the sides. So playing around with different shapes that you can take slices of. This is a 24 cell. At one side it's a cube, and then it goes to a sort of a truncated thing made out of rhombuses, and then off to the side. So this is an exercise in convex geometry, and this last one here is taking the three-dimensional slices of something called a 600 cell. So taking, what's that?
Can you repeat what you just said?
This is taking three-dimensional slices out of a 600 cell. So a 600 cell is where you tessellate the surface of a hypersphere with 600 tetrahedrons. Okay, and this is a nice illustration of some chosen segments, I guess. So in the middle, you kind of have this thing with icosahedral symmetry made up of triangles. So moving on from polytopes to smooth shapes. So this is a torus, a hypertorus. So what's happening here is you can parameterize a torus by taking a circle and dragging it around a bigger circle to make an extrusion. When you do that, you kind of get a donut shape. In 4 dimensions, you have enough space so that you can take a 3-dimensional torus and extrude that around a larger circle track to produce a hypertorus. And I wanted to know what the slices of that would be like. Okay, here we go. Okay, yeah, so like I was saying, a torus is, you take a cross-sectional circle, you drag that around this blue arc, and you get the surface of the donut here. And it's an exercise in something called Moore's theory to take level sets and look at how the level sets change as you pull the level sets up the surface. Sometimes you'll get level sets that have a singularity point in them, and that's when the topology of that level set will change. So this is a transition between having one circular type of cross-section intersect itself to become 2 disjoint circles. And then up top, you have another point where that cross-section will meet itself and then rejoin to become a circle again, and then that circle will blip out at the top of it. So you have the story of something coming into existence, being a circle. That circle intersects itself, becomes 2 disjoint circles, and then rejoins itself at this saddle point and becomes an oval again, and then that exits existence. So you have the story of a torus being the connected sequence of these interactions. To go to the next dimension up, you take a torus, you drag it around this blue arc, and that becomes a hypertorus. And the different level sets of that will sort of elucidate how that material is displayed in 4-dimensional space. So this was an exercise in realizing what was going on. So at the very bottom of it, you have a spheroidal element, and then that gets pinched off, so it's a torus, and then that torus kind of starts to intersect itself to become a 2-hole torus, and then that 2-hole torus pinches off to become 2 disjoint toruses, and then up top you see a symmetric story of what was happening below, that 2-hole, that disjoint torus pinches itself into becoming a 2-hole torus again, and then that goes through another pinch point and becomes a torus that pinches itself into a sphere and then goes. So the geometry of a hypertorus can be realized by taking these level sets and looking at how the level sets change as a function of height. That story is can be animated here as so you have a spheroid, that gets pinched to a torus, that gets pinched to a 2-hole torus, 2 disjoint toruses, and then back down the other way at the other side. So this is where I was showing you before was discrete polytopes. This is a smoothly parameterized 3-manifold embedded in 4-dimensional space with 3-dimensional cross-section. Now, due to the nature of how I made this, I can change the parameters of how much I'm... Okay, so as I pull a torus around the big arc, I can also tumble it in various ways and add twists to complicate the structure. So if I add twist to it, then that will change quite a bit the geometry of the cross sections. So as an artist, this is sort of like looking at this and saying, oh, that's neat. I like how it looks. So adding twists in this way will change the cross sections as you pull the height parameter up and down. And you get kind of these neat little things. And then I can go ahead and change how the hypershape is oriented in 4-dimensional space before I take the cross sections, and I get kind of some very fancy, kind of neat little things that happen. Specifically, if I add 3 half twists. I get, in a certain orientation, I have a trefoil as an equatorial slice of a twisted up hypertorus. And so that's a lot of fun for me to play around with. Right. And so there's a couple things that I'm able to do with the computational power of working with hyperdimensional polytopes. Namely, the Penrose tiling. This is an aperiodic tiling made out of two rhombuses, a thick rhombus and a thin rhombus, featuring pentagonal symmetry. So you have these pentagonal features, and even around the center pentagon, there are there are 5 more at each site here that kind of make like a meta pentagon. Anyway, I can go on and on. So this structure can be realized as a projection of a 5-dimensional cubic lattice projecting onto a 2-dimensional plane at a particular angle to make these pentagons appear as a cut and project method for creating aperiodic tilings. And when you move the 2-dimensional plane, so there's a 5-dimensional structure, I'm embedding a 2-dimensional plane inside of it at a particular angle, and if I translate that plane, it selects out different features of that 5-dimensional lattice so as to make a tiling. If I change the parameter of where that 2-dimensional plane is translated in 5 dimensions, I can individually move those parameters, translate the plane, and realize different tilings. If I change all these parameters one by one, that's what happens. If I change them all together, I maintain rotational symmetry about the center, and I get a wide variety of different, so I'll make this bigger for you guys. So I can vary this and get almost an infinite number of different, or a 1-parameter family of different Penrose tilings made from the same tile set. And that is a function of computing with 5-dimensional convex polytopes. This can be this can be taken into 7-dimensional space, so as a projection of a 7-dimensional cubic lattice onto a 2-dimensional subspace. I can get a class of tilings that have not 2, but 3 different rhombic elements tessellated into a aperiodic structure, and I can get a 1-parameter family of 7-fold symmetric tilings in this way. Pushing this further, so
Question.
yes,
So why is 5 and 7 special?
they're not.
Oh,
So yeah, as a choice, I can.
Penrose tiles, you use 5-dimensional polytope cross section.
Yeah.
So is there a relationship with 5 and Penrose tiles? A big rhombus and a small rhombus.
Yeah, so the 2-dimensional elements of the 5-dimensional hypercubic lattice are going to be squares, and the particular angle at which that 2-dimensional subspace is oriented in 5-dimensional space, you get those 2-dimensional elements of the 5-dimensional thing projecting to a big rhombus and a small rhombus, 2 different rhombuses featuring 5-fold rotational symmetry. The construction method can be adapted to any number of rhombic types. So here I set the parameter to 15. So this is actually using a 2-dimensional construction method known as the De Broglie multi-grid method. And so ramping that parameter up to 15 will get you something that looks like this. If I zoom out here, you can kind of see that the rosette in the middle is quite large, and there's a high number, a lot of different rhombuses here, colored by their area, their size, basically. So I started looking into what could this give me artistically. I noticed that for certain values in the parameter space, I get a rhombic tiling contained within a perfect n-gon, or as much of a circle as you can get. Here the grid count is 40, and the number of tiles is quite large. So this can be adapted. Now the parameter space of how I can shift around what the tiling looks like and maintain that circle on the perimeter, I started realizing that if I kept the shift values small, these are very small values here, I can get something which is contained within the circle. And if I decrease the variance on those shift values, I can kind of confine the chaos of this tile set to be, let's say close to the center, or as the case may be, away from the center. And if you, so here I got the parameters to be tight enough so that on the perimeter it's very regular, and on the center it's very irregular. If I modulate these parameters to have a repetition, then I can force a certain radial symmetry in the tile set. Now what's interesting is like these all have the same number of tiles in the same like proportion, such that like I can give you a box of tiles and say like paint by numbers this pattern, and then take those same tiles and paint by numbers this other pattern. So it has a lot of applications as far as like I don't know, I kind of want to get into masonry.
What are sort of the most, as we finish off, like what are the most important ideas from your project and your work that you can tell a lot of the students every year? Like why do you find this interesting? Why do you think about it so much?
I'm just obsessed. Obsessed. So it's
raise your hand if you're not obsessed. See?
all right.
You're in good company.
Yeah, follow your nose. If you find something that like, oh, this is interesting, it just might be like, it's got to be worthwhile. And
it
then
reminds me of the meme where, have any of you guys seen that meme where there's some guy like with a pickaxe looking for gold, and he's in this tunnel, and because it looks the same, right before he hits the gold, he just turns around, but if he went a little bit longer, he would have hit the gold. Like, I think there's something very beautiful about people like you that can just like keep pursuing their obsession like that.
How much longer did you keep pursuing it?
Forever. Some would say it exists in the afterlife. Yeah.
well, what's especially fun for me is like these tilings can be animated, insofar as I can change the parameters very minutely and get something different. And I don't know, I can phase them like a waveform and get something that looks like a radial plot of a you take a waveform and you make
Yeah, so you changed something, you incorporated some periodicity in, not exactly know what, but to constrain the disorder from the boundaries? I just wanted to hear you.
Yeah, so if I have a modulated sinusoid here in the parameter space, I get what looks like a rosette plot, but rendered in tiles.
Yeah, I find that interesting, but I don't know why.
I guess it's because the human visual system recognizes beauty in radial symmetry.
What is beauty? Hey, we
Right.
got philosophers here. This is a good way to talk about it.
Yeah.
Is there a website where we can like explore these parameterized families of Penrose tilings?
Yes, actually. So these are all located on the Wolfram community.
Okay. All right.
But how can I? Okay, UT guest. All right, let me connect there.
I can make a remark that there's always beauty in your showing all of this because people take different type of connections. So what you were showing earlier on the Penrose tilings, that was also observed by people in biology. When viruses get together, they make whole families of viruses, spherical and ellipsoidal and so on. And they are curvilinear tilings, but they can be taken as cross sections. That's why I'm asking about why.
Yeah.
The famous thing by Casper and Clue, and they won the Nobel Prize for that. It's called the HK tiling. So again, there's also historical connections to Muslim art and Muslim tiling.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of
Your program is very nice so that people can explore and see what they've seen before and possibly find some kind of rule.
Right. So extrapolating further, the cut and project method using convex polytope geometry, which is why I made those convex polytopes, was to do these tilings. So you can, if you start from the 5-dimensional cubic lattice and project onto a 2-dimensional plane, just so you can recover Penrose tiling, and then you can vary it from there. Other questions are, what if you change the tiling? So this is, if I took the E6 tiling, which is a 6-dimensional tile set, the E6 lattice, very irregular lattice structure, very easy to define, and do some geometry to get the 2-dimensional components of that. Do the cut project method to take those 2-dimensional components, which turn out to be triangles, project those triangles onto a 2-dimensional plane, you get something like this. So this is a bunch of triangles, some are thin. It has overall hexagonal symmetry about the center, and it has a certain texture to it. If I look for, this is the same E6 lattice projected onto a 2-dimensional plane with a different orientation. So this sort of has areas of a triangular tiling, these are equilateral triangles, the white ones, and in between are darker triangles which are smaller, which kind of crinkle those sites up. And those sites are themselves located relative to each other in a hex grid. And so you kind of have like a meta tiling on that. And some of these are very different. So here the 2-dimensional subspace in 6 dimensions is oriented such that the projection has fourfold rotational symmetry, and you kind of have these like little spirals that pop out of it. And so these are design choices that I didn't make. They just kind of pop out of this geometry based on the different angles that I choose to project onto. Here we have quite a different flavor, quite a different texture. And moving to 7 dimensions, let's take a look at some of these. A lot more complex. So again, we see a theme of 6-fold rotational symmetry around the center. You have sites where there are equilateral triangles stuck together into a triangular grid. Those sites are themselves separated out into a hex grid, and each site is sort of different from the next one in an aperiodic way. In between, you see thinner triangles making the stuff crinkle between them, and there's a certain overall texture to the whole thing.
Dugan, where can people, so people already sort of looked you up. What else are you active on Twitter, elsewhere, where people can find you?
You can find me on Twitter,
What's your username?
Dugan Hammock.
So DUGAN HAMMOCK. I know many of you have laptops and phones, and you probably have social media. Go follow them on there, so you can keep track of all of this art. And yes,
Yeah.
really fun because he has some very interesting ideas in many different fields, actually. And if you can't catch him on Twitter, you are also on the Wolfram streams, right?
Right.
And then sometimes he presents on the Ekkolapto Polymath Salon, sometimes in person or sometimes online, which we'll be getting into that soon. But any lasting words, Dugan, before we go to Scott?
This is projected from the E8 lattice. It's one of my favorites. I'll leave you with that.
All right. One last advice, so I think there's many students here. Now, really quick, how many of you are from CS? Raise your hand. Fine, really good shot. All right, how many of you are from math?
All right.
Okay, so, any biology, chemistry?
Neuroscience.
Okay, philosophy? Okay. All right, so we have somewhat of a range here today. And
Yeah.
you know, with Polymath Salon, the goal is to connect everything. So, being as interdisciplinary as you are, is there anything you can sort of say, besides obsession, about how you tend to connect very, very different ideas or fields together? In 1 minute.
Listen to people around you, especially if they know things you don't.
All right, I love it. All right.
Thank you all.